Are there deeper spending patterns once you've mastered the first strides that you should start to investigate or examine in steady strides?
Yeah, Lauren, one of the things we talked about an earlier session was your money scripts, right? A lot of why we do things are subconscious, and whether it's our eating habits or our spending habits, sometimes we have to kind of go back and look within. And so we talked about the Dr. Klontz's money scripts ideas and understanding, what's your motivation subconsciously of why you're doing the spending that you are. And I think once you kind of understand yourself, and if you're in a couple or in a family, understanding what other people are doing, that becomes really powerful, because if I understand why I'm doing it, I can be working on myself in addition to the spending. One of my psychology of financial planning classes, our professor had us do the money scripts, but also do a genealogy of spending. And so look at our parents, our grandparents, maybe even our great grandparents. What are the stories that they were telling themselves, and what message did that pass on to you? It's amazing to see kind of, that's my dad, or that's my mother-in-law, of why we're doing it that way. And so understanding them helps you to kind of appreciate why they're doing certain things, but also be able to resist their pushback when you're trying to improve your habits.
What an interesting concept, Gilles. I think we all do this a little bit. Like we all have a friend who is either the super spender or the super saver, or maybe a mother in law or a crazy uncle in the family. And they are spending all their money on that one habit. Can you talk a little bit more about how we can go beyond just an observation to understand where maybe we picked up our own money script?
Yeah, absolutely. Father's passed away. And so I think I'm a little safe to talk about him. My father grew up as a teenager. He had some heart issues. So literally, he was told that at some point he was going to die in his 20s. Ended up living into his 70s. But that idea of, I'm going to live for today because tomorrow I could die, translated into spending lavishly on nice dinners, nice wines, nice vacations. Didn't really spend a lot of time saving for the future, because in the back of his mind, he wasn't going to have a future. That really didn't help us as a family, but understanding kind of where that motivation came from and what I was picking up from that helped me to understand, okay, I do still want to have nice vacations, but I want to balance that out with saving for my kids' college education and making sure that I have a decent retirement fund. Understanding led me to better balance.
It sounds like the way we think about money and our spending habits and our saving habits are hereditary.
There's a lot of nature and nurture in that process, right? I mean, some people that are just savers by nature, right? They're going to squirrel away the nuts for winter, and nothing you can do to tell them will break them of that habit. And so there is a genetic, I think, component to it, but there's so much of it that is nurture, whether it's what our families experienced and passed on to us, or what we experienced as kids, that is kind of manifesting itself now when we're adults. Kind of getting a chance to examine why we do things, and getting a better handle on that can lead to big improvements in your habits, because now you're at least consciously deciding what you're doing, not just letting your unconscious or subconscious dictate things for you.
Do we also see, I'm curious, like spending habits or trends across generations?
We do see some habits across generations. If you've ever talked to any of the generation that lived through the Great Depression or World War II, the sacrifices that they had to make, and not wanting to be left left without, is a powerful motivator, right? And so I think we see that happening. One of the trends that I see in the younger generation is the keeping up with the Joneses is now transferred to social media. And we all know instinctively that social media is not the reality, because people could be putting on a show, their best selves, so to speak. But it's hard to kind of avoid that social temptation when it's everywhere.
So it sounds like social media is not a tool to help us maintain consistency with steady strides for sure. But you did talk about something that I find really interesting, which is like the generational shifts in spending, right? So if we think about our parents or our grandparents and how their views are different than ours, in all of your conversations and your mentor sessions, can you talk a little bit about how we're hearing people today talk about the economy changing the way they view spending?
Yeah, Lauren, there is if you think about the events that a lot of the younger generation have lived through, right? Depending on how old they are, they might have gone through the dot-com bubble, and then 9/11, and then the housing bubble, and COVID, and now some of the ups and downs of inflation. And so those things have had an effect on people over time. So that, along with social media and other social pressures from advertising, I think is one of those things that you've got to step back and think about how it's affecting you, and then going back to resetting your values and your goals so that it's not just, worry about worry about the external world in social media that's driving you.
It sounds like between societal pressures and the money scripts that not only we have, but that we've inherited from our family, and the generational stress and sort of patterns we pick up there, that there's a lot stacked potentially against you. And as you're taking these steps, it's important to be very mindful of that and maybe practice some self-care and some grace with yourself as you're moving through these strides. Is that right?
Yeah. Reminding yourself that to give yourself grace and find that balance point between living now and being able to hit your goals for the future is important. And I think finding a healthy rebalance to the social pressures, right? Whether it's finding an accountability buddy or group, or using the resources through Fruition of having one-on-ones with mentors, so that you can get kind of a counterbalance to some of the social pressures is important, right? If you're not getting the support at home, maybe find a group of friends at work that also want to go on this spend less journey with you, trade ideas, encourage each other to continue. And if nothing else, schedule one-on-ones with your mentors, and make them regular. You don't have to make super long meetings, but maybe 20 minutes every quarter will kind of give you all right, let's set the goals for this quarter. How did you do last quarter? How are you going to do next quarter? Become invaluable in your journey.